Make sure we were. All right. So I'll start off with the mission and vision of the BAC. The BAC mission is to advise and to make recommendations to the commission and the director on issues related to bicycling in the city, including but not limited to amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling. The BAC vision is by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, gold level bike-friendly city. At this time, I'm going to do a roll call. BAC members, at the time, please take yourself off of mute and say here when your name is called. Okay, we have Chair Jessica Wiggins.
Here.
Co-Chair Leah Chambers.
Present.
BAC Chair Tom Compson. BAC Vice Chair Alejandro Perez. Tracy Alexander. Adam J. Williams. Carl Salazar.
Here.
Welcome, Carl.
Thanks.
Christine Anthony Miller. Beth Martin. Lisa Griff. Trevor Reitman.
Here.
Johanna Mahmood. Nick Hellier. Judith Villarreal. Amar Mohite. Mike Van Dusen. Anna Ramirez Herta. Nikki Knight. Brian Holzer. Beyond McReynolds. Right, for our officio members, David Fields.
Here.
Ian Lavacek. Juvenal Robles.
Here.
All right. Right.
I think we have Virginia Lynn representing.
Yes. Any other City Houston staff member or partners?
Virginia Lynn is here.
Hey, Virginia, how you doing? Right. So if you're joining us via Microsoft Teams, the agendas and slide can be found on the website, houstonbikeplan.org/BAC. You can also join us by phone by dialing in 936-755-1521 with ID code being 524-722-257 #. Please remember to stay on mute while on Teams unless identified by the chair to speak. If you're connecting through the phone, please mute yourself/unmute by pressing *6. Before you is our agenda, and I'll pass it over to Director.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to see people. I have very happy updates for the report this month. There's some very, very good news. I want everybody to take a deep breath and to enjoy a couple of big wins. Today, just a few hours ago, City Council approved purchase of a bike lane sweeper.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was awesome. This was a long time coming. This was a lot of work by the BAC. And when budget conversations were going on, Public Works said, you know what, we might have a way to do this, and got it in. They are now going to work on the kind of operations plan for the streets, and we've asked them to come back. We're hoping that'll be at the July meeting of the whole for their, the actual schedule for the sweeping. That is a very big deal.
Nice.
Number two, last week, I'm hoping you all saw the mayor's announcement about the 11th Street Safety Project, which includes bike lanes. That was also a very long time and took a lot of energy from a lot of people and all the way around, people coming to public session and staff working on analyses and the BAC in support, and we appreciate all of that. So the schedule now, it had been paused before we got to 100% design, so we're restarting that this week. And we're hoping to go, estimated to go to construction this summer. Number three, last weekend, so just last weekend, in the blazing hot sun, your intrepid staff hosted a pop-up bike lane at Griggs and MLK to show an example of what the Calhoun Griggs MLK bike lanes will look like. We were out there building at about 8:30 in the morning. The bike lane was up from 11 to 2:30. And if you know the time the suns are the day is the hottest, we are going to rethink that in the future. But we were there, and it was a lot of fun to remind ourselves what we can do with just a little bit of paint and tape and some old-fashioned elbow grease. So that was a great event. And then lastly, I have one more thing, but it depends on if somebody else is on the call who's going to speak at public session. Is anybody from GHORB on the call? Don't see you. Okay, I'm going to do a short version, and if they're here later, they may speak as well. We were reached out to by the Greater Houston Off-Road Biking Association, and they said, hey, you all do some bike stuff. We're trying to do some bike stuff. Can we get together and talk about bike stuff? Which I love getting those emails and calls. So I had a really nice conversation with them, represent what we're doing. We've agreed they've sent us a map of some projects they've been working on, and we're going to see how we can incorporate their support and some additional muscle to expand our networks in the future. So all good things. Things you recommended getting done, projects getting moved to construction, coordination, and short-term and long-term stuff. I'll take any questions.
Wow. I don't have a question. I just want to say thanks, David, for all your work. And that is more good news than I expected in this introduction. So thank you.
I do want to be very, very clear. This is the ultimate of team efforts. I appreciate that you named me, but I want to make sure the team, including Brandon, Brian, who's with us in spirit, we'll be back in a few months. Our amazing partners at Public Works, you know, their only way we're going to get this thing done is together, and that is our how we say.
Great, great.
All right. Thank you, Director, for that report. We'll move over to the chair's report.
Oh boy, that's me, I guess. So that's an awesome way to get this meeting started off, because it really does take sometimes a long time to see things like that come to fruition. Talking about the bike lane sweeper and the move up, you know, the green line from the mayor on 11th Street. Just to give y'all like kind of a bit of history on 11th Street, how that kind of came up was, and I think it must have been 2017, 2018. We had, I think, 4 people on bikes killed in about 30 days. And it was a really big deal for us to see something happen from the city. And what came out of that was a FHWA sponsored road safety audit that I was lucky enough to participate in. And we knew from looking at 11th Street, we were out there in the rain looking at 11th Street together. Ian, and he's not on the call, but he can tell you, we were fighting about 11th Street at that table that day. And we knew it was going to be a fight later, but together we came to the conclusion that you're seeing today. And so I think I'm just really encouraged that, you know, at that time, the idea of Houston building bike lanes was a dream, and now we're getting the political support that we need to make it a reality, and that's just so encouraging to hear. So thanks for like getting it to the finish line. That's really awesome. And in that spirit of kind of starting things, I think Leanne and I were kind of talking about wanting to take this meeting in this subcommittee in an intentional direction of, what are we doing? Why are we here? And how are we gonna accomplish what we want to accomplish? So for those of you on the call today, I'm hoping that you're ready to participate, chit chat, write, and tell us your hopes, dreams, fears, and traumas around bicycle education, because we want to really work together to accomplish something like the things that David mentioned earlier. So thanks for being here.
All right, thank you, Chair, for that report. We'll move now to the public comment section. Public comments, if you want to send it, you can send in written comments to bac@houstontx.gov by 2 p.m. the day of the BAC meeting. Comments will be read aloud by staff during the meeting. You can also comment by phone. To join, you can dial the number you see on your screen with the ID number. Press *6 to unmute when called upon by the chair. If you'd like to comment via Microsoft Teams, you can type your name and what you'd like to comment in the chat. Is there anyone, we didn't have any written comments through the email or before the meeting. Is there anyone online that has a public comment they would love to share?
I'm seeing Chris Nunn is here. If you would like to comment.
Hi, everyone. What is there a time limit? This is my first time in a committee like this.
Usually
I don't.
2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I won't
we
go
just try to
over
be
that.
respectful of the time, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Chris Nunn. I've been born and raised in Houston. I now live with my wife near the Galleria area. And I'm new to all of the beauties of public transit and bikeable living, but I must say I am so excited for what this committee is doing. My wife cannot stand how often I talk about the excitement around the wild bike lanes. We went with a group of friends on it, and it just opened my eyes to all of the amazing possibilities. We live, I'd say, a mile from the Galleria, dozens of shops, dozens of restaurants, and I would never dream of biking to them, not because of proximity, but as this committee knows, it's because of safety. And I think a fun idea for some potential awareness is somehow leveraging that wonderful map that you all have, of like a bikeable map where people could put in their address and show maybe a little radius that says, look, you're 2 to 3 miles from all of this. All of this should be bikeable to you, but due to safety, it's not. And it could be a great way to open people's eyes to realize, oh, I would never have dreamed of biking to the grocery store or to my friend's house or to this restaurant we always go to. But yeah, if there were a bike lane, it's a 5-minute ride. That would be such a fun thing to do. So overall, like I said, I'm brand new to this world, but I want to thank this committee for what you all are doing. And I look forward to cheering you on and helping out any way a citizen can. So thanks for the time.
Thank you so much.
All right, do we have anyone else in the chat that'd like to speak? No? Okay, we'll move forward with our agenda. And now over to the chair to talk about visioning discussion.
Yeah, so it is really difficult to tell who is here sitting in this chair here. So if you are a part of, or even on the call at all, if you could just turn on your camera just so I can see your face, so I understand who's here a little bit, if you're open to that idea. Thanks so much. Woohoo, Trevor, just leading the way for us all. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Because I think the discussion that we're going to have today is really important, and I really want to have this be as interactive as possible. And so we kind of came up with some questions here about, to get the conversation started, about, what's our goal? What's our vision for this subcommittee moving forward? And how can we be effective together in pushing something forward? So the first thing I think I want to start with is, let's see, where I want to kind of find out where, and this is all from coming from you guys and your brain, you know, where is the momentum already in bicycle education? I feel like if we had an idea of what was happening around City of Houston, Harris County, it would really be helpful in figuring out how we can support in the best way. So if you guys have ideas, and I know Leah's gonna kind of be taking notes and maybe is gonna create some kind of cool graphic out of this at some point for us to all refer to. But, you know, if you're on the call, do you know who is doing bike education right now and where are they?
This is Leah. I just wanted to note, we only had a handful of responses to the survey. So if you filled out this question on the survey, please state it again here so that I can record it, and just so everyone can hear that. Thanks.
Nobody knows any bike education happening? How about, I'll start. I'll mention, so I think at our last subcommittee meeting, we had Free Wheels come and talk about their services that they're offering to refugees in the Bolton area. And they're specifically focused on refugees. Someone else I know that I believe gave a presentation to us is he's doing Wellness on Wheels, Renee Gonzalez, and he's primarily in the East End, correct? I believe, yeah.
What was the name of the word?
It's Wellness on Wheels, WOW. And that's in East End, and he is serving mostly, I believe, school-aged children. Then I know, and I don't know if we have anyone from Precinct 1 or has any idea about this, but Fernando is also doing some bike education in Precinct 1. Do we know any more about that and what he's kind of up to?
I don't know what specific which day or the programming. So Fernando Martinez, I think is his last name. He has a bunch of different equipment. He goes and does pop-up type events at schools. He joined us for with our Acres Home Safe Routes program. He has a few different things, training bicycles. So he can bring a fleet to a school and literally teach kids who have never had a bike how to bike. He does safety training, and he's got this, I want to call it a puppet. I don't know what else to call it, but it's basically a bicycle with a doll. Doesn't seem right either. And you can remote control it and you can like watch it bike around, and the kids really seem to relate to it. Yeah. So I don't know what to call that other than a school focus
A bike
bike
rodeo?
education rodeo. Sure.
Yeah. Okay, do you know what area is he kind of focusing?
I mean, precinct 1, but I don't know more specific than that.
Okay. All right, we might want to reach out to him and just kind of figure out what his plans are. And then, so there was another man, and I'm forgetting his name, but he was in the Acres Homes area, and he ran an after-school program. He's a teacher in the area, and I'm gonna have to look it up again, but it's called King's something. King's Bicycling or something, and he was a member at Bike Houston and was just the loveliest man, and I lost touch with him, but I want to figure out what he's doing up there. And then on the topic of Acres Homes, we have what you guys are doing. Can you kind of give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we are working with Harris County Health on a Safe Routes to School pilot program. And that is about, effectively walking and biking within a certain radius of 3 pilot schools this year.
Okay, and that's just in Acres Homes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I know, isn't Harris Health doing, or they did something similar, I believe, in Pasadena?
They did, that was, I think 1 year or 2 years before our pilot.
Okay.
And they're also just starting to take a look in Settegast, but I don't know how much they're going to do with the physical environment,
Okay.
but that's more coordination.
Okay. Gotcha. And then I know, and I don't know if we have anyone familiar with what Bike Houston is up to in their education right now, but at one point, they were doing, bike education and safety classes, learn to ride classes, and then also, the light, where they were giving out lights to folks at night, and then there was another, it was bicycle friendly driver. So there was a safe driver education program that I believe HPD has adopted and is using in their bicycle training for officers that are on bicycles. And that's currently being led by Ruben Pena. And I know that Commander Christine Anthony is in touch with him. But it might be good to kind of get an update on how they're using that program within HPD, because I think that's really cool that they're doing that. Anything else that people can think of, maybe if you responded to the survey, or where you see any momentum in education? And this doesn't have to be teaching people how to ride bikes necessarily, or how to be safer on the road, but even some kind of campaign that's happening right now.
Does B-cycle do any education?
Don't know if they are.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
But that's a good question to have answered, to understand what their plans, thoughts, capabilities are in that. Okay, so let's maybe take it to a little bit more of our oh, go ahead, Trevor.
I think through signage on streets and on some of the more popular trails, and I would also perhaps advise to bring more of that signage to those places, and maybe come up with ways to make that friendly and creative. For instance, on Allen Parkway or White Oak Bayou, places where people are walking and biking, just to explain easily where to walk, where to pass, what it means when a cyclist rings their bell, that type of thing.
Gotcha. So signage with information on how to be safer on your bike.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go out of order from the screen, but I'd love to know from you all, as someone who's new to the BAC and to this committee in general, what are your thoughts on what success looks like for this committee? Both personally and as a committee. I know it's a big question.
I know we have many agency folks on the call today. So I guess, and I don't know very many of you very well, and so I'm not sure really what brings you to the BAC Education Subcommittee. So I'd love to just hear from each of you about kind of who you are and why, you're here. And I can go down the line and call on people, or you can volunteer, up to you guys. I'll maybe start with Trevor, just because he's been such a model citizen today.
The deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
For me personally, I grew up in Houston and moved away for a long time, and spent I lived in Portland, Oregon, and other cities that had good bicycle infrastructure, and was very pleasantly surprised about 5 years ago when I moved back to Houston, seeing all the infrastructure that has come about and what this committee has done, what this mayor and the previous mayors before Mayor Turner has done in support of bicycle infrastructure. And for me personally, I just started attending a few of these meetings and ended up on the committee, and it's just been very exciting to see the changes and support around the city from all the entities involved in it. Just glad to help out and to be on this board.
What does success for this committee specifically related to education look like to you?
To me, I think it is finding a relationship and an understanding between different modes of transportation, and expressing that well to the public so they don't see each other as enemies or in competition with each other, but in collaboration with each other instead. I think a success for us means that we are delivering that message well.
They're delivering a message of mutual benefits and unity among all the modes.
Right.
So done through messaging.
And creating a landscape where those modes work well together.
Right. Yeah. Okay. How about you, Jonathan? I don't know you. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Bush. I'm not actually on the BAC, but I've attended some of these meetings and been giving, some, input, public comments on various projects, because I've been very interested in kind of the mission of the BAC. I tend to, run on our trails and where we have sidewalks. And a few years back, I had an injury and led me to buying a bike. I hadn't owned one since I was real young, so I'm not like a confident bicyclist. I'm becoming more confident, but it's still streets that don't have protected bike lanes, or that have any real traffic. I don't feel too comfortable on. I don't usually feel comfortable like taking the lane. And so I think there's a lot of things like that where like the bike education I got was whatever I remember from when I was in elementary school. But in my experience from getting out on a bike more, I think, I mean, what I see is that the biggest safety hazards seem to be from, drivers, and I can only do so much on a bike to, try and not put myself in a situation where a driver might endanger me. Um, and that's sort of where like, yeah, there are probably things that I can, I can do everything right, and still, somebody is gonna cut me off as we approach a stop sign together, or I'm gonna be waiting to go straight and they're gonna pull up at the stop and turn right as I'm pulling out, or so like it's just kind of, I guess, being aware of all of those common situations and the etiquette that, I feel like a lot of bike education has to also be driver education, right? Because I think there's just a lot of, especially in a city where it's not, biking hasn't been a common, alternative mode of transportation.
That's really helpful. Go ahead, Leah.
This is Leah. I was just gonna tack on to that, Jonathan. That's the same for me. I'm lived in the Bay Area for 8 years, so I was a little bit more of a confident cyclist, like I could merge with traffic and things like that, but I felt like there was definitely like a pedestrian first, at least pedestrian first kind of environment. They're still navigating some of the bicycling things, but I now have 2 kids here. And for me, I want to create a place that is safe for them to bike. And it's not actually, I mean, they're 6, so I don't really trust them heartily, but I really don't trust Houston drivers. And from an education standpoint, I mean, the way that we've operated, at least my understanding is historically it has been auto first and auto first everywhere. And I think that is a change that I want to be a part of, and a change of sort of that sea change into like we're all sharing this together. So. Thank you for that.
And I think it makes me think about, now I really just want to know what's going on with the bicycle friendly driver education program that is apparently within HPD now. And how that's going and how we can support them. And at the time when this kind of first came out, HPD was also running 3-foot safe passing stands. So they would, they have these fun little radar things on their bicycles, and they put a police officer on a bike and put them, you know, they have to ride down the street where people are making complaints, which sounds terrifying, but the reality is that that's what people are doing all around the city every single day. And if someone came within 3 feet, they would get an alert on their bicycle. A police officer would be waiting in a vehicle, follow up with the person, and then hand them information on the 3-foot safe passing law, and then in some cases issue them a ticket. They are apparently still doing these things and are open to where they should be doing it. So I think maybe that's something, and I'm sad that Commander Christine Anthony isn't here today, because I think opening those lines of communication up a little bit more in between us and HPD will help us understand and help them understand where they can be effective, because some of their issues were, you know, A, I don't like sending my police officers out on a bicycle with the intention that someone's going to potentially come within 3 feet of them. And then B, we weren't issuing enough tickets to really justify this as a regular activity. But as I think many of us know, that might just depend on where you are. So that's really helpful. I don't want to super call on everybody, but, you know, Carl or Virginia or Jay Budenal, if you could just kind of tell us what your vision for success for this subcommittee is, even if you're coming from an agency perspective, you know, like you're the, you know, the magician behind the curtain. So let us know what success looks like for you too.
Yeah, hi, I'll go. I am I'm Carl Salazar. Happy to be on this committee. Pretty new, I guess, 3rd or 4th meeting in, something like that, on the overall committee. I think I can't remember if this is my first education subcommittee meeting or not. But anyway, I came here to be of service. I'm a cyclist and have lived in Houston for about 14 years, I guess, and lived in the Heights most of that time. So I was able to kind of see the trail system grow and really take advantage of that. There were a couple years, I want to say 2 years, where I lived in Bel Air. So I think I took advantage. You know, you kind of take it for granted depending on where you are. And I was pretty active cyclist when I first got here. And there was a period of time when I didn't even have a car, and I just rode my bike all the time, which is really something in Houston, but made it work. But anyway, you know, when I made the transition to Bel Air, I really got to appreciate where the trail system was, and because there was nothing in Bel Air, right? There's no sidewalks in a lot of those places, and it felt really kind of dangerous, to be honest. And I didn't ride my bike very much, so I think having come back to the Heights, I really started to empathize a lot more with people who lived in parts of town who didn't have the advantage of living near a trail system, right? So, and I know we're growing the trail system a lot, and this group has had a lot to do with that, and some other groups as well. So I guess I think part of the reason I joined this committee was to see, how we can kind of continue to move that momentum forward. I think from an education perspective, also I used to work in the mayor's office. I was a director of Veterans Affairs for about 5 years, and left in 2018. Anyway, and the director who's there now was the guy I hired, so it's kind of nice that he's there and doing the job. But in that time, I was able to do a couple cool things, cycling related. We were able to have a couple city rides through the city with Wounded Warrior Project that didn't happen before, and so we coordinated with HPD and fire department, HFD and EMTs and everything, and really put together some nice events. We had the fire chief ride with us 1 year, and really had great support from HPD. So I think when we talk about kind of liaising with HPD, they probably wouldn't remember me, but if there was somebody you needed to kind of help with that, I could help in that regard, probably, because I really enjoyed working with them. Anyway, I think from what success looks like to me, to kind of build on what Jonathan talked about, the Houston drivers are terrifying, right? And it just seems like the world is crazier now than it ever was. At least in the 14 years that I've been here, people are, I don't know, there's a tangible craziness that seems to be out there in the world. And I'm just, I'm a cyclist. My friends who ride, and my wife and I ride. And success, I think, looks like to me some kind of campaign that speaks directly to people who are behind the wheels of automobiles. And I don't know if that's through social media or what the campaign looks like. I think that it should go beyond just enforcement from a police force perspective. I think there are other things that we can probably do, and I guess ultimately that's why I'm on this subcommittee, is to see what we can do to help educate and just bring awareness for cyclists, so that people stay alive. And that's why I'm here.
Quickly jump into.
Yeah, get it.
Hi. So here from Public Works, I feel that my main role in attending these is to make sure anything that needs to get back to other folks like Ian when he's not able to attend, they hear it, can answer questions, respond to concerns. But specifically for, as a city employee, the role of education. I do think that there are opportunities to do more internally in addition to external programs. I think it would be important for fleet management or other entities to participate in education programs. I think, gotta not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So the city should be practicing the gold standard of any, educational thing that we are trying to put out there to others. And then just from a very straightforward perspective, obviously, like Trevor mentioned with signage, Public Works can play a strong role in making sure any recommendations from the subcommittee on signage or whatever get implemented. So happy to participate in that way.
Awesome. Virginia, can you tell me, when you say internal fleet management, how, what kind of fleets do we have? How many people are there? What kind of vehicles are they operating? Can you educate us?
At this time, I cannot, but I know it's large. I know the fleet is large, and there might be others here that have more information. I think I'd be happy to come back with specific stats if we want that. I will say where I'm coming from and thinking about fleet having a role is I used to work for the City of New York in citywide administrative services, which purchased the fleet in particular and managed it. So and they started implementing really strong Vision Zero requirements in their fleet acquisitions and in training for their drivers. So that's kind of the perspective I'm thinking about in terms of educating internally for people using vehicles on behalf of the city.
So we're getting some really great information. I'll just kind of maybe summarize, well, Leah, you might have a better summary.
Well.
Maybe
Yeah, I can. So, wrong layer. So I think what's great is so far, success looks like for this group, and I think there's some common themes, which is we really want to support this changing landscape and this changing landscape from car only to a more balanced system, and that we create a landscape where all these modes kind of work well together. There's a lot of talk about training and messaging and those two kind of components. So training for drivers, training for fleet, as well as training for folks who are using the trails. And then, or that's more on the signage, but signage components as well. And so those are sort of like the two. And then Carl, I thought your point about we want to grow this trail system equitably as well. And I think that kind of spans probably a variety of the BAC groups, but I think how we lean into that messaging as a group is also really, really good. And then in terms of what are our goals for the next year, I know we haven't gotten necessarily to that question yet, but I've kind of been dropping some things there. I think we've heard coordinate with HPD and some of the programs that might have already been out there or could potentially be reinstated. I think we just heard about maybe potentially a campaign for drivers, and then we talked about signage. And then I think somebody mentioned the map about 5-minute destinations from any point. So those are kind of the 4 that I've already heard. And then, of course, we have all the momentum pieces that we talked about, but that's kind of the success and goals.
That sounds great. Juvenal or Jay, I would really like to hear from your perspective of kind of what success looks like. And I know, is that Parks and Rec Department? Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is Juvenal. So from my point of view, I mean, I'm lucky to work with the Parks Department, and I've been in grounds maintenance, and so I'm open ears trying to learn from this subcommittee. I'm not part of it, but I like to stay informed. We provide maintenance for many of the popular trails in the city, like the White Oak Bayou Trail, the Columbia Top Trail, the MKT Trail, the Harrisburg Trail. So for me, success is to provide a good service to those that use our trails, and I guess we're very lucky to see this trail system grow. It has grown tremendously. I've been with the department for 27 years, and I mean, I recall when they were building the Columbia Top Trail, the MKT Trail, the White Oak Bayou Trail, there was only a small section of trail. And I think it was between 11th Street and 16th inside the loop. And at that, back then I was like, where is this trail going to? And it's amazing to see how things are connecting and the opportunities that are being created for the citizens. So just trying to provide a good service and stay up to date and give any input that I can to make it better. Thank you.
Well, Juvenal, I gotta say, thank you so much for leading that maintenance piece, because that is just about as important, if not more, than building the trail in the first place. And it's so nice to know that we have someone that's really thinking about providing an excellent service for people that use our trails. So thank you so much for doing that. Anyone else have any comments on success or kind of why you're here or what you'd like to see come out of this subcommittee? Okay, so, Brandon, could you bring up the questions again? Priorities, yeah.
We need to do one thing next.
So let's talk about priorities.
We can.
So of the kind of things that Leah mentioned, and, you know, we've got some messaging, a campaign, we have training, both for drivers and for internal, City of Houston staff. I believe that's kind of it. And then I also think that there's the whole idea of, you know, that there is bicycle education happening in the city already. How do we support people in the best way we can? If you guys were to choose maybe your top two things of what we should really prioritize and move forward with, what do you think those top two things should be? No, we can't do it all. I'm also feeling like I'm like doing like a guided meditation today. So I might call on y'all again. Let's maybe talk about priorities, Carl.
I guess the goals, I guess if I were to pick the top one or two goals, you know, again, not knowing like all the existing efforts that are going on out there in the world, but or in Houston. What I would say my top two goals would be for sure, number one, I would some kind of campaign or messaging for drivers of vehicles around bike safety. I would say that would be probably the most life-saving, kind of critical part for me. You know, I certainly, you know, there's two sides of that, right? I think bike riders, whenever there's an accident, I think bike riders are generally not to blame, but there's probably something we can do to educate cyclists as well about the best ways. So there could be kind of a campaign that talks to drivers as well as cyclists. So I guess those would be the top two things that I would be most interested in getting involved with. During my time on the board, or at least, or this year.
For me, I think I really like the campaign ideas. But I think I would tend to see what we could do to tap into the HPD and Public Works things, since they're already kind of out there, and just check in on what those status is. Because those can kind of run outside of us. Like if we can apply some information or see if we can get some things restarted. A campaign feels a little big to me to start with. So I'm almost like, what can we already kind of tack on to? So I'd be curious about reaching out to HPD and doing that. And then hearing more from Virginia and like, what can we do within the city policies already? Can we apply some advocacy there to change some things that could have an impact? All while we kind of brainstorm what bigger things might be. Seems like a little lower hanging fruit.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as because I touched base with Sergeant Ruben Pena, who leads the bicycle training downtown the other day, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're still doing these things." I said, "Oh wow, really?" You know, so I think kind of connecting with them, and I mean, they train dozens and dozens of officers to ride their bikes every year. So it would be cool to kind of bring them in a little bit. That's really helpful. And I agree, kind of going with what's going on currently is a little bit easier. David, can you talk a little bit more about what the city's role in Acres Homes and partnering with the county on their Safe Routes programming is?
So it's a joint program. It started from our Vision Zero program, which identified one action as initiate a Safe Routes to School pilot program. Didn't say which neighborhood. MD Anderson has a program called Be Well Acres Home, where they are funding initiatives to help the community be healthier, to reduce the rates of emergency room visits, so that they can focus their people on more longer term medical care, and create them out of the emergency room. So we got together with Harris County Health and said, well, Safe Routes fits right in. Harris County Health had already done that in Pasadena, so we said, okay, this would be, you're willing to fund it, and we have partners who can help us with it. So they are leading the more education and communications pieces, and we'll be responsible for improving the physical environment.
Okay. And so when you say they're responsible for the education and communication pieces, that's Memorial Hermann or?
Oh, sorry, Harris County Health.
Harris County Health, okay. And their education is is it around how to ride a bike better? Is it, I mean, like what?
It's more about, and maybe education is a little small A, about bringing the school community, the parents, the teachers, the administration, about how to create champions in the school to keep it going long term. Because what we learned from all these programs is city staff can come in and do a whole bunch of things. If the local champions aren't there to keep it going, it just dies the next year.
Right.
So they're kind of gathering those resources to get people long term involved in it.
Okay, so it sounds like the education is really about identifying and equipping local leaders to carry Safe Routes to School into the future. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder, is that really, is Harris County Public Health dependent on that funding from Memorial, or was it Memorial?
Yeah, MD
MD
Anderson.
Anderson,
Yeah.
okay.
So they use that grant funding for a position to help create the pilot project.
Okay, gotcha. And is that something, I mean, I know we're low on staff at the moment, but I'm just thinking about like, how can we, if it's helping Harris County or helping our staff, like how can we make sure that that doesn't go away?
So it's a 2-year pilot. Year 1 was 3 schools. The second year will start in August. That'll be another 3 schools. And towards the end, we've got to decide is this scalable? Do we do it one neighborhood at a time? Could it be writ large all across?
Yeah.
That second one feels like a big bite at this point, knowing how much we put in just for 3 schools.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that financial model looks like yet. But certainly, I would love to say all 3 schools are 100% on board, and if we walked away tomorrow, it would keep itself going. I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
And then, we still have to work out how to get that.
And what has the response been from them?
The administrators specifically who were excited when we called them in the first place, they had remained excited. We've had a hard time connecting with the parents.
Okay.
Connecting with anybody beyond that first 1 or 2 people.
Something that I've kind of come across in just, if we're doing plans in areas where there's really not a lot of civic infrastructure, what I mean, there's not an active super neighborhood, or the civic clubs aren't necessarily, publicly organized or registered with the city, is that I'll go to the school and see kind of how I can work with them. And something that I found out was that some schools do transportation surveys on their own of their kids. And I thought, oh, interesting. I wish that data was available for everyone to see, just so we could understand where schools are kind of at right now. So I'm thinking about how we can like make that move into the future. Maybe it's not, some big program, and maybe it's just like, is it some outreach effort to say like, how can we just get this data from schools and make that available to people? And,
So I'm just being clear, you're talking about Acres specifically or all schools in HSID and Spring Branch and all?
wherever we want to start. But just, just to kind of start that conversation with
You would certainly work
schools.
from the 3 schools, which I can provide.
Okay, okay. But I just find that it's, if schools are already doing that on their own, I would love to know that.
Well, I would say, my daughter's in elementary school, so I know they have like I would assume basic data on like how many kids have picked up in Carline, how many kids are picked up or after school, or how many are picked up by walk up.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll just say with that data, because I thought, oh, wait, they have this, is a lot of parents drive, park, and then walk and grab their kid to get back in the car and drive. So while you don't have that, like, did you walk from your home or did you bike from your home?
Yeah.
So there's like some layers of data. So I'm sure your data is better than that, but I would say the schools might say, oh, we have that,
Right.
but there might be some limits to what that actually is telling us about how kids are getting there. So
Trevor, what do you got?
priorities.
So, going back to the discussion about Houston drivers and being successful in getting Houston drivers to drive more cognizant, I honestly think the best way to do that is to change and adapt the infrastructure physically. And so I think it's what makes this committee successful is getting the messaging out to get more people in support of changing the infrastructure. And so I think it's a good idea for us to keep checking in on our terminology and our vocabulary to make sure it's palatable, because certain terms become politicized, like for example, road diet. And you could see how that played out, that terminology with 11th Street. And I personally like that term. I get excited when I hear that street is getting a road diet. But then I noticed that on Equipment Street, for example, they use the term street improvement. And there was far less objection to the adaptation of that street. And so I think it could be a good idea for us just to keep checking in about our vocabulary and terminology and getting the messaging out to make it more palatable.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because when we were planning and building Harding and Elysian, one of the things that we were concerned about was we don't know if people are going to know how to use this facility. And so alongside the implementation, we had big, like, poster sized graphics printed and placed along the corridor to let people know how to use it and where to put their trash cans and things like that. And that was something that we did at Pike Houston, but
Great.
I think that can be, that's education too. And I think that as much as we can support what we build with visual education, and I know that when we did the construction as well, I believe Melissa coordinated to have little, door things on everybody's, everybody had little things on their doorknobs saying, this is what's coming, this is how to use it. It was like an educational information on how to use the facility. And I wondered, like, is that something that we could do more streamlined to say, like, do we do that? I don't know.
We've done it a little inconsistently, but Peter, the proponent of them, reminds us to just get us back on track with that priority.
I mean, I think you've always obviously got to coordinate taking them down. But I think it just helps, it helps fill a gap. And I think that it's probably an easy thing to do, that we can make sure to do. Cool. Virginia or Jonathan, do you have ideas on priorities?
Even though it was already mentioned that it is a big ask and maybe too overwhelming to start with, I do think a campaign has a lot of merit, something that is seen widely. I think there's a lot of value to that. And then selfishly, I think the internal education program would be really valuable. And even though I don't have the information to share with you now about maybe what's the best way to plug into existing processes, that one might be an easier lift to kind of get into existing systems.
And to be clear, that education that you're talking about for kind of city employees, that's for city employees in general, or that's for city employees who operate a city vehicle?
Who operate a city vehicle is what I was thinking. I think there's value to more, right? I mean, even just at city employee parking garages, right? There can be visuals, there can be information when you get your parking permit, whatever that is. So I think it could be wider, but I was specifically thinking those that, as part of their duties, operate a vehicle.
Cool. Thank you. I like the idea.
Can I add one?
No.
Okay. My mind is always set on community oriented guy. And I believe someone mentioned about the 5-mile radius. And my mind got to turning. And maybe we can tap in with HPD when they do National Night Out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a big ask or like another campaign, but it was on the campaign kind of side where we can show them what part of the bike network is in their area, and possibly do with the police department, do a ride saying how this is how you can use the bike network in your area. During the National Night Out, you can use campaign, educational tools there.
Yeah.
You can show them how to, at our dangerous intersections or our high injury network areas, we can let them know like, hey, this area, this intersection is highly crashes, but this is how you can safely get across. Like demonstration, like I'm thinking more of a demonstration type thing, but that may be a big ask. But I think that would also just help the community be educated how they can use the bike network in their area as they get around. And my mind, I'm visualizing this community is good, this community is good, that bubble gets together, that radius gets big, And so that's just how the education and the network as a whole is going to continue to build out and safety rises that way. But that's just throwing darts at the board right now. But yeah.
Well, and I was gonna say that like the city is building bike infrastructure, and you may not know necessarily if you're not in the world. Like David knows all of them. All right, so maybe he doesn't, but there's somebody knows all of them. But if you're unless you're following it, you may not even know. Like, oh, that came into my neighborhood, and that means I can get to that. I think that's really cool.
So it would be almost like developing a material for HPD to use on the National Night Out Day.
Right.
To say, it's almost like a preventative safety.
Kind of in a way, yeah, but also partnering with those management districts, and also maybe just neighborhood leaders in that area. I haven't hashed it out, but that was just what popped up in my head. Maybe work on it in the future, but yeah. But I think, National Night Out is one of those things where it's like, everyone's here,
Right.
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 unless you're at the Astros game or something, you know,
Right.
but, you know, everyone's here, this is a good time to get that
Yeah.
mass communication out.
Right.
Tell your kids, come out, grab your bikes, let's, you know, let's ride out, you know.
How many national night out, like how many communities participate in National Night Out?
Now, that I don't know, but
Like a lot.
but yes, a lot, but I know it's throughout the city.
Yeah.
It's very publicized and, but yeah, we can see.
I like that idea a lot.
Especially as like an intro, like a starting
Yeah.
point. And if you do, well, it's both, to Carl's point, like a campaign for drivers and a campaign for
Mhm.
cyclists.
Right.
Like, so you're being aware of the network.
Right.
I like that. I think you might have just given yourself a job.
And you're now in charge.
That sounds great. I think for me, for priorities, I really want to resurrect this bicycle-friendly driver training program. It's something that we spent a lot of time working on and developing at Bike Houston. And we even had swag to go along with it. And I know that it's being used already in HPD, and I want to see that become more of a ubiquitous training program. I think for all city, I think that fleet thing is really interesting to me. That we have, you know, on the back of every city vehicle, you know, the little sticker that says, and I had it on my car up until a few weeks ago, but it says bicycle friendly driver. And you get this sticker and a certificate after completing the program. The challenge with this program, and this is what I want to ask HPD is, you know, who is doing the training there? Is it somebody, you know, is that someone we can support to do more of those classes somewhere else? Could they come to Public Works and do a class with our fleet at some point? How can we leverage what's happening there so that we can, I mean, and that's a campaign in and of itself. While doing something that's a little bit easier to grasp. So, okay, I guess the other question I think maybe that is most important is what are things that we don't talk about at the education subcommittee that you want to talk more about? And I know that, you know, many of you are new, but is there anything that we haven't talked about so far today or in a previous meeting that you're like, I wonder why we're not talking about that? Or I really wish we would talk about that. Jump in, Trevor.
Micro mobility, or what's the term that we're using for that these days? Personal mobility vehicles, those who are on electric bikes, electric foot scooters, one wheels, which we're starting to see a lot more of. That seems like there's a real gray area there. And these are all people, one less person using a car here in Houston. And so I think we should try to figure out how to bring those users into the conversation and maybe brainstorm on what we think the rules should be on paths for PMVs.
Yeah. That's really important. Has the city, I know we went through a wave of dockless bike system companies coming into the city several years ago. And they kind of left because we gave them too much crap. And I'm wondering, have they come back at all, trying to talk to you guys about making a re-entry?
I think at this point, the city system is B-cycle,
Right.
so we're not looking to compete with what we're investing in ourselves.
Okay, so that's the kind of feeling on adding more company options there. Interesting. Because I know that downtown, the scooters are kind of everywhere.
And those are all private companies.
Private
And that,
Yeah.
Not supposed to be set up.
I wasn't there. I'm not sure how those discussions went, but I know that in other cities, the big problems were because they were dockless, that they could be left anywhere and they were blocking intersections and sidewalks and stuff. But if someone owns their own electric scooter, obviously they're going to be invested in knowing how to use it properly and not leaving it in the middle of a sidewalk. And so I think that was the issue at the time, was that the problems that were happening in other cities. But my comment was more on how to bring those existing users just into the conversation and figuring out the right messaging and the rules for where they're supposed to ride. Are they supposed to be in the street? Can they be on paths? Just kind of slowly figuring out what that gray area is.
Anybody else on things we don't talk about?
We should.
That we should. Okay, let's move then into, I know that, the limit in this room is 10 people. Is that right?
It's 25 now.
Oh, it's 25, so it's lifted.
Yes.
Okay,
But you just let us know so we can make sure we accommodation.
okay.
Yeah.
So I feel as though meetings are most effective when we can sit and chit chat with one another and give each other glasses of water to drink after coming in from the hot sun, and really build those relationships so that we can have, some team building as we move forward with these really challenging things. So I'm just curious, what your comfort level is currently in meeting in person, or are there other barriers to you coming in person that I would just be curious to know that. So how do you guys feel about meeting in person versus meeting online?
I'll jump in first. I'm fine with meeting in person. I wonder though, having not been to an in-person meeting, are you in the, I don't know where you are exactly, where your meeting room is. I don't know if it's in the annex or if you're in some other place. And I guess the next question to that is there parking?
So we're in 611 Walker. I guess it's the main city administration.
That's the Public Works building.
The Public Works building. We're on the 6th floor in the
John B. Ray.
John B. Ray room. And that's where all of the subcommittee meetings happen, right? And then the full BAC meetings happen in City Hall Annex, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm gonna do my best to show up in person to this subcommittee meeting and the BAC meetings, because I think, our ability to create relationships with each other is really the backbone of what we're all here to do. So, and I believe I know there's parking at Annex.
Not free.
It's
There's
not free.
parking supply available for anybody who would like to pay for it.
Okay,
And there's bicycle dock right outside.
okay. And then for this building, is parking underground?
They're just lots. beyond it.
Just lots everywhere? Okay. All right. I mean, Carl, do you need like a specific spot?
No, just having worked in the mayor's office, I know, I don't know. I just know like I had a parking spot, but I didn't know, like generally if they were City Hall, like where exactly we'd park. But yeah, the street or the lot behind the annex for those meetings would be fine. So it was more of a general question, make sure if we're in person, if we had a place to park. I'm all for riding my bike, of course, but I'd probably be coming from my day job and not on my bike. So anyway, but that sounds good.
I would be just fine with coming in person and, taking the elevator downstairs.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I'm assuming we would still allow for the public to attend, either in person or virtually.
Yes.
Trevor?
I prefer meeting in person when it's possible. To me, without the latency of the internet and on the phone, it really makes a conversation more fluid. But I also like the option to be able to chime in remotely. Me personally, I'm gone for a lot of the summer. I'm out of town,
Well,
so it's nice to have that option.
Okay, cool. I think we're
Good.
all done. Thank you guys so much for your input.
All right, thank you, guys. So we'll continue on with the agenda. So now we're at the open forum session. Is there anyone on the call or in person that has any bike-related topic, anything they want to share at this time?
I
No?
don't see anybody in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I learned something really, maybe freaky is the right word for this, but, heat stroke is a thing.
Mm,
And it is apparently the leading cause of death among weather-related, injuries in the United States. And so I think that I just want, because I know many people on the call are on their bikes a lot, and it has been very hot outside, just to remember to hydrate and stop riding your bike when you need a break, because heat stroke is a real thing. And it happens more here than people realize. So just be mindful of that and stay hydrated and, keep your calories up. Because there's, getting hit by a car isn't the only thing that can happen to you on your bike. So stay hydrated.
Sorry, it's not working.
And if you want to send it around and I'll include it in the meeting right chat.
okay. So no more open forum. We'll move over to announcements. All right. On the screen, we have our next meetings coming up. The Bicycle Advisory Committee will be meeting on July 27th at 2:30 to 4:30 in the Annex Council Chambers. It's in person and hybrid. The follow-up will be the Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting held August 24th at 2:30 here in the John B. Ray at 611 Walker. And then your next Education Subcommittee meeting will be September 28th at 2:30 here at John B. Ray room at 611 Walker. Any announcements that I may have missed? Then we thank you for your time, your energy, your efforts, and we'll see you in July.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.